Yeah. Today we are going to discuss about the claim processing. Usually, the claim, how generally the claims will be created in healthcare environment. Usually, being a business analyst, we have to know about the kind of claims, what usually happens, like what are the different code numbers we use, right? So that is when being a business analyst, we must be knowing about healthcare claims. In regard to that, I just made a presentation where it will be easy for anyone to understand. Usually, if any claims wants to be performed, there is some amount of procedure which normally followed by the healthcare organizations, like they diagnosis the patient and whatever the necessary treatment and all everything will be provided by them. So whenever there is a treatment was provided, so whatever the relevant information in reference to the treatment or the kind of diagnosis what they have made, everything will be in form of codes. This is what generally the code numbers which we call it as ICD codes. So these ICD codes are the one which are useful whenever we are creating claims, because a biller has to write some medical coding for each and every claim. If they want to write code and all that, they need to add some information to the existing claim form. Whatever the claim form we have, usually everything is in encrypted format nowadays, because everybody has to follow the rules and regulations of HIPAA, like Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Using this act, people have to create different claims and all that. So for a medical biller who is performing the code, right? So who wants to write the code? On that context, first of all, they require two different things. One is CPT codes and second is diagnosis codes. So CPT codes, that's nothing but current procedure codes. It was like what exactly the services in healthcare provider has been performed. Everything comes under CPT, current procedure codes we can call it as. And second was diagnosis codes. Like this diagnosis codes will demonstrate the medical necessity, means whatever the diagnosis they have made as a part of the treatment providing to the particular patient. So whatever the demonstration medical necessity of diagnosis they have made. So all these things comes under diagnosis codes. So when we are talking about the codes process and all in healthcare, so procedure codes are different because what are the procedures they are following as a part of services will be as separate. Even diagnosis codes are separate because whatever the diagnosis they were making, so the demonstrative diagnosis codes will be as separate. At the same time, claim codes will also be separate because whatever the claims we are performing, so there are different codes will be there. Of course, that I'll be showing in the next video, in the next this thing in some time, right? So these are the two things which are required for a biller to take to create the claims and all, right? So if they, because they want to add the information about the patient and as well as patient visits here. So for that, this creating of claims and all everything, for that, this procedure and diagnosis codes are required. At the same time, for every procedure, there are some cost which is involved in it, because this is completely depends on the kind of agreement between the kind of insurance plan which an insurance company has provided. Because for every treatment or for every procedure, there will be some cost. So that cost has to be updated by the people, right? So cost of procedure, everything has to be mentioned there. So this cost, based upon this cost, these reimbursements and all everything will be taken, right? So these are two different code numbers, codes which normally biller has to update in the form whenever they wants to send these claims to the claim scrubber, like clearing houses, all that. So these are the two different codes and all everything they have to use it. So the major result or major reason behind preparing this is to know about what exactly the claims are we going to do, and so why are we preparing these claims, and who is going to prepare. Usually this is what generally initial coding and all will be done by the biller. That's what who. And when means whenever the treatment was completed for the particular patient. So before once the treatment, everything is done and all, they have to prepare all the medical information sheet, right? So they have to prepare all that they have to prepare. So that time it happens. Once the treatment is done, so once the complete treatment for a particular individual was done so far, so that time organizations, healthcare organizations has to provide that information. So based on that, biller will do it. So that is what when. And finally, the how much means cost of the procedure, right? So because cost of the procedure, we have to mention in that. In the claim form, so for what reason we need to prepare and why are we preparing this claim forms is required because we want to send for reimbursements. This is what is required. And who will be preparing? Initially, medical coding people will be there. So they will do the coding part. So for them, these are all the procedures and codes they require. And when do they require is this? Once the treatment is done, this process will initiate. And cost of the procedure and all everything will be mentioned in the claim forms. So this is how usually the complete process usually happens. Now, when we are talking about the what we call the kind of code numbers, what is that we are using whenever we are following being a healthcare business analyst, whenever we want to know about the code numbers, what is that we use and all. So these are the code numbers usually we uses. So these codes are important for any healthcare business analyst to understand. So first is about provider because we wants to know about eligibility verification. So for eligibility inquiry and all, so the kind of code number we use is called 270. Against to the inquiry, whatever the response we are going to get is called 271. Second is that pre-treatment and authorizations and reference. So for that, whatever the code number for pre-certification and adjudication, the kind of code number we will be using is called 278. If you want to submit any kind of claims, right? So service billing as well as claim submissions, if you want to do in reference to the process itself is concerned, the kind of code number we'll be using is called 837. If you'd like to know about the status of the claims, where means healthcare provider wants to know about the status of the claims which was submitted to the insurance or payers, the code number will be used 276. Followed by this adjudication, whatever the response given by the insurance or payers, which comes under 277. And finally, whenever there is a claim payments and all everything happens in 835 is what generally the code number will be used here. Apart from that, if there is a kind of any enrollment process happens prior to that and all that. So for that enrollment and all, 834 is the enrollment will be done to the sponsor. And at the same time, whatever the payment order will be provided by the sponsor. Sponsor means any organization where employees working. So organization will ensure that employee, right? So employer, I can say, right? That sponsor, because insurance company will send an enrollment details through 834 to the sponsor, to that organization where employees are working, like all that, because they will be made employees insured on this, right? So based on that, sponsor will give you the payment order accordingly, right? So whatever the payment order they have raised and all everything, that comes under 820. So these are the different codes which normally we uses in claim processing. So eligibility inquiry is 270. For that response is 271. Healthcare services deliveries and all everything comes under 278. Claim submissions and all everything happens under 837. Followed by the status inquiry will be 276. Inquiry response against to the inquiries comes under 277. And claim payments and all everything happens under 835. If there is any enrollments will be taken place, it is 834 and payment orders comes under 820. So this is all about usually this claim processing and as well as the kind of codes, what is that we use. Followed by this, how this claim, creating claims and all everything happens on a high level note. Being a medical coding person who has to write the coding and all everything is all about. So this is all about the session is all about. Okay. Thank you.